Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolisms, and patterns.
And I'm Moonkittee, your queer femme poly kitchen witch and proud geek. Today's topic is spirit and shadow magic, otherwise known
Ooh,
as elemental magic part 3.
part three, the fifth element, right?
Right, yes. So our last couple of episodes have been focusing on elemental magic and how we work with it. And as we touched on those episodes, spirit is often considered an element, but not exactly in the same way, since it's intangible, where all the other things are pretty much tangible things, meaning you can see or touch it
Or even taste it in some cases.
sometimes. So, how do we work with spirit?
Okay, so spirit is, very present for us spiritualists, for our spirit workers. It shows up in many different ways and has very many different, titles. Obviously, we're working with spirit guides, and spirit
Hmm.
guides could be like angels, guardians, guides, ancestors even,
Hmm.
and all of the elementals that we've mentioned before spirit. So those all have a spiritual essence to them, spiritual connection with them. So spirit guides show up in many different forms.
Hmm. On a spiritual plane of
Exactly.
existence. Yes.
Yes, and in our consciousness, in our
Hmm.
ideas, sometimes we make manifest spirit, by writing the mythologies.
Hmm.
Creating art to honor the ideas of deity or spirit or
Hmm.
ancestors or angels.
Right. And I would say working directly with the deity itself is a type of spirit magic
Uh-huh.
because, or again, you're now connecting to a being on a different plane of existence in that realm of spirit. So,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, prayer is that emotional expression of devotion, could be a
Yeah.
guidance, request for guidance, or request for help. Spell work
Yep.
is also an active energy with manifest to a desired result. So that is also often working in spiritual energy. But again, the nature of how you do the spell could be working with a different type of elemental magic, whether it's candle burning, whether it's a bay leaf, whether it's water magic, or whatever it may be. So you're still doing other forms of magic, but it's still with that connection to spirit. So it's going to have that spiritual magic aspect to it as well.
Yes. Even dream work would be considered within the element of spiritual work, spirit
Mm-hmm.
magic. Sometimes I get messages in my dreams. Sometimes that's how dead people talk to me, is in
Mm-hmm.
my dreams. I will dream of them. We will have conversations. In my dream, I'll know, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be dead? But here you are talking to me, and I'll have a whole conversation even
Mm-hmm.
about that, about their death or about, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I've been visited by a
Mm-hmm.
spirit, and that's really cool. But even just lucid dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of when you're in your dream and you can recognize that you're dreaming, you
Mm-hmm.
become lucid, and so you can kind of sometimes maybe control your dreams a little bit if you, and there are ways, there are books, Trust and
Mm-hmm.
Believe, or I'm sure websites or podcasts about it, but you can train yourself, give yourself clues in their waking world to make lucid dreaming a thing that you can do more often. It's kind of like a muscle that you can exercise. We use the dream world for astral projection,
Mm-hmm.
for sending ourself in spirit other places while our body sleeps, while our body is resting or in a meditative state. And then keeping a dream journal so that you
Mm-hmm.
can actually interpret what messages you are getting through your dreams symbolically. Those are all different ways to work with spirit.
Mm-hmm. I think of lucid dreaming. The thing that I've noticed was when I realize I am in a lucid dream, the first thing I want to do is fly.
Me too. Or sometimes it's not even like fly with like, wings, but just taking flying
Yeah,
leaps and being able to
superhero
jump.
flying.
Yep, exactly. Being able to jump really high or really far or
Hmm.
from building to building, very much that. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Or that's actually what wakes me up to a lucid dream is having that experience of like I can run, I can fly, I can jump buildings.
Hmm.
Oh, I must be dreaming. Oh, this is cool. I'm dreaming now. What shall
Right.
I do? Yeah.
Right.
Where shall I go? Yeah.
No, it's a different experience. And I've tried to, I haven't caught myself very much. So I think it's one of those things that eventually I'll probably try doing those triggers to help myself lucid dream more. But yeah, no, when I catch myself, that's always the first thing I want to do is, okay, I'm
Mm.
dreaming. I am dreaming. I know I'm dreaming. Let me see if I can fly. But yes, anyway, side tangent, but
Yep.
yes.
Nope. I feel you on that one because I do a lot of lucid dreaming.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Also, working with spirit, we're talking about listening to messages, and those messages can
Hmm.
come through so many different ways. It can be through divination, like of course tarot, runes, charms, I Ching, angel numbers. I've heard are very popular. You see a lot about that. You can also hear it through mediumship. So if you are talking
Hmm.
about spirit connections directly with
Yep.
mediums, or spirit journeys. So, taking those meditative journeys into the spirit world to connect with your spirit guides or ancestors or other entities that are willing to help you along your journey or provide insight.
But that's also connecting to your intuition and
Mm-hmm.
this idea that there is an inner knowing, an inner wisdom that you possess, and giving it some credit, giving it some, belief and
Mm-hmm.
faith, and listening to what you know is true in, your heart of hearts. That too is listening to messages through spirit
Mm-hmm.
because it's through your spirit.
Right.
And then, of course, you can always be incorporating other elements into how you honor spirit, like we talk about lighting a candle for spirit. You can light often, traditionally it's white, but often depending on what spirit you're working with, you can light a black candle. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I was to do a new moon or a dark moon ritual to Hecate, I would
Mm-hmm.
probably use a black candle. But, I use drawing in the element of fire to feed the spirits that are visiting. And also sometimes we leave them offerings
Mm-hmm.
of food or drink. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you can call in other elements that help you in honoring the element of spirit as well, because they almost when you're creating a ritual and why do we do all of this? Why do we call the quarters? Why do we do elemental magic? It's because you're creating a sacred space, a container, and you're calling in earth, air, fire, and water to hold that container so that spirit can be present and powerful and connect with us. And it's almost like, you're creating the container. That's what I think of it as. Setting, casting a circle, calling the elements, and then calling in spirit. You've created a container to have a spiritual experience in.
Mm-hmm. Which is a church. This just literally popped into my head as you're talking about that. The container for the spiritual world is essentially what a church is. It is a fancy place that is contained and built to worship that connection between the human and the deity. And nobody does altars quite as well as some religious solid faiths. Let's be honest. Again, grew up practicing Catholic as a child.
Yep.
The altars to the saints. So you would pray to the saints for guidance. The altar during a mass was always either elaborate, even in its simplicity, was still calling in various elements. So the nature of why people go to church in general is to find that connection with spirit in a place
Mm.
where they feel where it is housed. So whether that's in a ritual or in a church, that is a housing an area for directly dedicated to connection with spirit.
Yeah, and I just love like as a pagan being the kind of, nomadic spiritualist
Mm-hmm.
where we bring our churches with us. We create
Mm-hmm.
our sacred space so we can do it anywhere. We can do it outside. We could do it in a tent. We could do
Mm-hmm.
it, under a canopy. We could do it, we bring our churches with us. But yes, very much having a space dedicated, whether it's outdoor or indoor, specifically dedicated for people to meet in the idea of honoring spirit of some sort is very powerful
Mm-hmm.
and very good for our soul, our
Mm-hmm.
hearts and souls. I miss like the convention we talk about that we used to
Mm-hmm.
do, that I hope that we find one at some point to do again, or even spiritual retreats.
Mm-hmm.
Those two can be containers for meeting with the intention of being connected to spirit, connected in spirit with one another, and connected to our own path and our healing and all of that stuff. I love it.
And just like with the elements of earth, air, fire, and water, there is also a spirit element to the tarot. And
Absolutely.
what we tend to think of is and not of the minor arcana, but the major arcana itself is
Yes.
all spirit. It's all connection and spirit work, that spirit journey that
Yep.
we go through.
Yes, like every message from the major arcana is something about like soul work that you have going
Mm-hmm.
on, or, deep soul lessons that you are working with. Where the minor arcana can attend to like kind of basic details of life, the major arcana showing up kind of says, this is a big deal. This is a big deal in a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
So those messages always hit pretty hard.
And resonate with spirit. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's, of course, shadow work. So
Mm-hmm.
spirit, a lot of people think of spirit as like love and light, which we've talked about. We're not all
Mm-hmm.
love and light.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is also the darker aspects or the internal aspect or the mystery, the abyss, the darkness going down into the underworld or the roots of the earth kind of. So there's this other aspect of spirit that isn't just, brightness and light and heavenly and, whoa, but there's also the real work of facing our fears. Um, accepting things about us that we cannot change, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how much we want to.
Right. And it's the idea of shadow work. And we have a whole episode
Yes, we
back way
did.
back when, episode 17, on scratching the surface of shadow work. But tying a little bit of that back up here, we're not going to go into the details of how to do it because that's all in that episode. But here, that idea of shadow work is, like you said, it's spirit work. It
Mm-hmm.
is that unseen, as above, so below. So as above in that light, so below is our earthly self and those aspects of ourself that are sometimes hidden,
Hidden.
sometimes
Re-
rejected or feared.
mm-hmm.
And dealing with those lessons and learning to either love or accept those aspects of ourselves that have
That,
been told that are wrong or
yeah.
told that are undesirable, and learning to bring them to us in a way that we dismantle that criticism that comes
Yep.
with them and bring them into a state of balance and harmony, and finding ways to make them into strengths, not be this weakness or fear.
Yeah, even like getting in touch with your inner child and doing some healing work with your inner child can be an aspect of shadow work because
Mm-hmm.
that child in you had to give up some things about itself in order to
Mm-hmm.
become an adult. And getting back in touch with that and reconnecting with that part of yourself can be a very powerful magic.
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, it can be shadow work because in childhood, we've all experienced different kinds of traumas, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to be an individual, unique person and also want to fit into society that's not necessarily always built for us magical creatures.
Right. Talking about shadow work, we're not talking about black or baneful magic. And I hate the term black magic because black is no different than white in the sense that, again, they're both aspects of spirit. They're the yin and the yang, they're the balance, the either side of the coin. So neither is inherently good nor evil, but baneful magic. It's shadow work is not
That's not
baneful
what shadow work
magic.
is. No, it's not casting spells on other people.
Right.
Shadow work is a lot of self spiritual actualization, self spiritual exploration,
Mm-hmm.
learning to that we can love things about ourselves that were rejected or we were taught that we're supposed to hate ourselves about so that we're always improving ourselves so that capitalism has a hold on us or something. But no, it's like shadow work is a deep dive, dismantling criticism, learning to love, give yourself love. That can be a shadow work because that's
Mm-hmm.
hard for some people. We live in a critical world that is very critical of everybody.
Mm-hmm. And it is still connection. It is very much that spiritual connection because you need the spirit energy to be able
Yes.
to process and deal with those aspects of yourself that are harder to find and are harder
Yeah.
to recognize, or the things that we don't like. You need that belief and that faith in that spiritual energy and connection to let it come through.
So, how would our approach to spirit magic be different than, like, say, the traditional elemental magic that we've talked about in the last two episodes?
I think for me, the first thing that you think about is, like I said before, spirit magic deals more with the intangible rather than the tangible. So you believe in spirit and you believe that it's there, and you might be able to see it working through the manifestation of other things, but you can't see spirit, you can't smell spirit, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, and you definitely can't lick it. So it's harder to tell, but you may be able to hear it or feel it in your head or through other methods that are not your direct senses.
It reminds me of a podcast I was listening to recently that that somebody had said, it's funny how if you're talking to spirit, you're a holy person, but if you're hearing spirit or God in your head, then you're crazy.
Right.
But some people really, you can hear like
Hmm.
that inner higher wisdom, that spiritual guidance. Some people, not everybody, but I definitely do, can hear, and I don't feel like I'm hearing voices but I just have that sense that spirit is talking to me.
Hmm.
And you're right. It takes a leap of faith. That's what it is. That's what faith and trust in knowing that you're not insane and that this can be a universal experience for some people.
Right.
It doesn't mean if you do hear spiritual messages, it doesn't make you better than anybody else.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't make you holier than anybody else. And it certainly doesn't mean you should start a cult
No.
because we all can hear things like messages from spirit if we're in
Hmm.
the right setting, if we're in the right containers, if we're putting in the right work. You can open yourself up to that sort of thing. So it is accessible, if not tangible, but it does require a bit of faith in yourself, a little bit of trust.
Hmm. An open mind in the sense, like you said, that sometimes you're the results and the messages that you get back and that you send out to spirit, you get back, you may see and they may appear in ways that you didn't expect or may
Mm,
not have any prior knowledge of. Something that we see often is signs, seeing something repeatedly. If you're messaging or you're sending a message to Hecate and suddenly you're seeing keys or you're coming across crossroads on a regular basis, or you are talking about Persephone and you're seeing pomegranates and you just happen to,
mm-hmm.
everywhere you turn around, oh my God, there's a pomegranate tree. You go for a wild walk and suddenly there's a pomegranate tree suddenly in the middle of your path. Lots of those things come up when you're not looking for them. I
Yeah.
tend to see dragon in a lot of rock sculptures. I'll see them in the clouds. I'll see them in the negative space between the trees. And it's just the way that my brain processes. And I can see those connections and messages from spirits in that kind of intangible way. Does a little mushu pop up in front of me? No, I wish. That would be awesome. But you can find that connection in other ways.
A lot of times I'll get number as a numerologist because I it has
Hmm.
a I understand a meaning behind the numbers, so I'll get like number sequences that keep popping up, and then I'll go
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, what is the universe trying to tell me? And I'll add them up and I'll simplify them down, or I'll see like, oh, there's three fives, so the message of the five, but also the message of the 15, which
Hmm.
is a six, and seeing an animal that you wouldn't normally see, or having an interaction with out in the world with something that just you notice it, like it
Hmm.
feels special. It really is about what you pay attention to,
Hmm.
what you spend your attention on. Sometimes signs are signs because you notice them
Hmm.
and they mean something to you.
Exactly. And if you are, especially if you are asking spirit to send you a sign of some sort, oftentimes that will come out is you'll overhear a random conversation that answers exactly what you were thinking about or a question
Hmm.
that you had. Just walking down the street, you'll overhear something, or you will just like Kit said, see something. You'll come across a street sign with the answer to what you are looking for. It's wild.
Yep.
It
Yep.
really is wild when you open yourself to spirit and open yourself to the possibility of receiving your answers in ways that are not strictly tangible in front of you. It's wild to see how fast and how eager spirit is to connect and willing to connect with you.
Absolutely. And of course, there are tools that have been
Hmm.
developed that make it easier for some people who
Hmm.
maybe, need a little bit something more tangible when you're dealing with spirit. And so we have divination tools. That's what
Right.
divination tools are. It's supposed to
Right.
help us connect to, make that connection. So it could be cards, runes, charms. We've talked about all of that so that we can hear. And honestly, I do a lot of divination work and I don't read for myself because I will know what it's saying, but I don't want to hear it. But if somebody else says this to me, then I have to hear it, right?
Right.
So that's why sometimes it's good to have people that you can exchange messages with.
Exactly. Because, yeah, sometimes we don't want to hear the message that spirit is trying to tell us.
Yeah. It's like grumble, grumble, grumble. Get off my case, mom.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That own kind of shadow work right there.
Exactly. It is. For real.
Keep
For real,
sticking my
for
hand in the
real.
fire. Ow, that hurts. Why do you keep sticking your hand in the fire? Because I don't know.
Mm. I want to feel the burn.
Yeah.
Spirit work is a leap of faith. It is, something that uh I feel like it's a necessary
Hmm.
magic to attend to our mental health, truly.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's a good practice for all around, depending on how you do it. You don't even have to do it if you're not comfortable with worshiping a deity. That's okay. Connect with the ancestors.
Hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be your biological ancestors. It could be the ancestors of the area in which you live, or the ancestors of a group of people you are connected with. Again, keep that open mind.
And don't be upset if you do reach out to the ancestors in an area and they say no, or a spirit comes out and says no. Because, like we've talked about before, consent is always a thing
Hmm.
when it comes down to it. And if you're not meant to work with someone at a period of time, or not meant to work with a certain deity or aspect, spirit, whatever it may be, heck, it may even be you're not even meant to work with someone that you wanted to at any given moment in time. And something pops up and it's like, oh, wait, no, this is not the right time. It all is that manifestation of spirit and connection, and being able to trust that there is something more to be learned, or there is something more that you need to know to be able to step into that space. Or maybe that you're never going to step into that space and you have to learn the lesson of being okay that you're not going to be able to step into that space. But it's all about those messages we need as humans to be well rounded and functional in society, in ourself, and have that level of self care that we are giving ourselves and giving to each other.
So, on the other side of that coin about consent that you brought up, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to also mention that you get to say no.
Mm-hmm.
If a spirit approaches you and you're like, I don't want to fuck with your energy, you get to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel like dead people attached to you and want to talk to you or want to send messages through you, that's all good, but you can put up a barrier and say, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing this, or only under these circumstances, only when I set time aside to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can create the container, right?
Mm-hmm.
So remember that you have the power to say no to when a spirit's knocking on your door. Now, sometimes they call loudly and they won't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's some kind of destined, and you just have to like attend to it, answer the call when you're ready. But just know that none of this is a requirement and that you do get to say no. You can turn that
Mm-hmm.
off. You can say, don't, ghosts don't come visiting me in my
Mm-hmm.
dreams. I cannot handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
And
important.
that's a good point with back to ways to work with spirit magic is warding. We dealt with it and we talked about it a little bit with our protection magic basics, but that's warding is also a matter of spirit magic, because you are
Hmm.
setting boundaries, you are setting areas that are blocked and not accessible, and you can set that spirit entity behind that ward and leave it up until you choose to bring it down.
Yep. So always proceed with at your own pace, with reverence and respect, but also with boundaries in place because that's important too. You
Hmm.
can't just, go off the deep end because God told you to, because that's not going to fly
Hmm.
in the society. So there's always a balance.
And there's always the idea, if there is a malevolent entity of some sort that does invade your space beyond that, that is where working with others who have stronger spirit guides and everything else come into place. And that can help exercise, for lack of a
Hmm.
better term, that entity that is causing you pain or maliciousness. So there is that banding and working together, because again, that negative energy, that negative aspect, if you don't want it and you're choosing not to, sometimes it may take more than one person to get rid of it, but you can still work together to be able to set those boundaries and words so that it doesn't no longer affects you.
And
Cutting and clearing.
honestly, that's a reason why we want to build good relationships with the spirit guides and entities and ancestors that we do want to work with,
Mm-hmm.
because they are also on our side, on their side of the veil,
Mm-hmm.
who are willing to help protect us and keep whatever energies that aren't meant for us permeating
Mm-hmm.
our wards.
Exactly.
Well, that is as much about spirit, I think, as we had prepared to speak about. But of
Right.
course, there's always a deeper rabbit hole to go down, and we're always
Mm-hmm.
open to hearing what other people think or what their experiences are with working with spirit or shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, two sides, same coin,
And if we miss something glaringly obvious, please tell us.
right? Send us
We're
an
not
email.
exactly. We don't claim to be experts. We're two witchy queer people who have a
Like to
passion for
talk.
this and like to talk about this and want to share our experiences. But with that, we want to hear about your experiences too,
Yeah,
and how that all relates together. Because I know I sure as hell am not considering or calling myself an expert in any realm of
me
this. I
neither.
just know it works for me. I'm the expert on me, and that is it.
Correct. Because there's no one true way.
Exactly.
And there's no one true, only right deity either, which
Mhm.
some people have a hard time believing, but that's also the truth. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the Queer Witch Project. And if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, 10 stars, subscriptions, I don't know, whatever helps you keep in contact with us. We love it.
Mhm. And if there is a topic you'd like to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle at Queer Witch Project. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously. Yay!
Bye!